Whenever anyone asks me how possible it is to write a quick and simple novel, my answer is always, why would you want to? Seriously, why would anyone want to rush through the process of writing a novel? I've said it in some of my other videos. Writing isn't about getting to the ending. It's more about the journey that brings you to that ending. And that's because a true writer loves to take their time and enjoy all the benefits that writing offers. Time for another of my little tales. Four women, Olivia, Amelia, Ava, and Charlotte, friends since high school, had just arrived at a little European town of no real significance except for the fact that the town claimed to have the most haunted house in existence. For over 200 years, people from all over the world have traveled to Godric's Hollow to try their luck and be the first person to remain inside the walls of Rose Cottage until the sun appeared. The four girlfriends placed their knapsacks on the floor of the parlor room and intended to sit up all night playing cards and talking. Opening their knapsacks, they did inventory of what they had brought with them. Olivia had brought sandwiches. Amelia had brought some alcohol. Ava, the suspicious one, brought a pair of handcuffs and a flashlight. And Charlotte brought a pack of playing cards. Charlotte really didn't want to be there. She hated being scared. She didn't even like watching horror films. But she was desperate for money and believed this was the only way to get her out of her year-long debt. While they ate their sandwiches, drank their alcohol, and played cards, Ava explained her reason for the handcuffs. She went on to explain that she didn't believe the house was actually haunted and that the townspeople had conjured up the idea of a haunted house to attract tourists. They had someone hiding in the house whose job was to scare everyone into running away before the morning. She intended on catching that person and handcuffing him to the radiator, where she knew he wouldn't be able to escape from until morning. She then hooked one end onto the radiator and smiled. It wasn't long after that two of the people who had taken one of the bedrooms ran down the stairs and straight out the door, screaming. The four girls looked up at each other in surprise before beginning to laugh, even Charlotte. A few minutes longer, and a few more came running down the stairs, screaming and running out the door. "Whoever he is, he's really good," exclaimed Ava. "It's only been an hour, and most of them have run out of here screaming. I'm going to go upstairs and catch him on his way down to us." She grabbed her flashlight, left the room, and cautiously made her way up the stairs. A moment later, and the last two people came running down the stairs, screaming, and charged their way out the front door. A few seconds later, and Ava ran down the stairs. She didn't stop at her friends. Instead, she yelled out, "It's not a hoax! This place is really haunted!" She then ran out of the front door. The other three girls, left alone in the house, turned to each other in shock. They knew that Ava was the one that never believed in things like ghosts and haunted houses. But when they saw the terror in her eyes, they became very afraid and knew that they no longer wanted to be there. For a while, the three friends remained seated on the parlor room floor and stared out toward the hallway and the staircase that everyone who climbed it ran back down terrified. Suddenly, they heard a creaking sound coming from the staircase. As they listened, they realized it was someone or something descending from the upstairs floor to the floor they were on. It was too dark for any of them to see what was coming, but they knew something was. Ava had taken her flashlight with her when she went up the stairs to investigate, so all they had was the light from the moon shining in through a window. But with each eerie step, it got closer. Then the noise stopped. "I think it's down here with us," whispered Amelia. It's just inside the darkness at the bottom of the stairs. As the three girls stared in terror, a hand came out of the darkness. Olivia was the first to her feet, followed by Amelia. They both ran straight for the door, screaming, never looking back. Outside, Olivia and Amelia joined Ava and the rest of the people waiting in the road, too afraid to get any closer to the house. Then they heard Charlotte scream at the top of her lungs, a scream sounding so terrifying it scared all who listened as they waited for the moment when she would come bursting through the door to safety. But she never came. She continued to scream for a while longer, and then there was silence. Her friends remained on the road, hoping that she would run out to them, but too afraid to go back inside to find out why she hadn't. When the sun had risen in the early hours of the morning, the witnesses for the town, who were made to remain until the last of the contestants were out of the house, walked up the pathway, opened the door, and stepped inside. They suddenly found themselves staring, open mouthed, into the parlor room. Today, I'll talk about the joy of taking your time, and then I'll tell you what had the witnesses so surprised. Think about your average reader who, after getting the kids fed, bathed, and off to bed, picks up a novel and then curls up on the sofa with a cup of tea and settles in for the next couple of hours, drifting through the pages of the book she has waited all day to get back to. She's not in a hurry to get to the ending of that story. She wants to prolong and relish the experience. It's the enjoyment that she craves from one page to the next, taking her out of her normal everyday life, if only for a little time each evening. A good story is meant to be savored. It's meant to be an opportunity for discovery, uncovering the world the writer has created for her to dwell in. It's no different for the person who created that world. The, a writer, after getting the kids fed, bathed, and off to bed, sits in front of her computer with a cup of tea and begins writing for the next couple of hours, carefully and methodically creating page after page of narration that she has waited all day to get back to. When a writer takes on a novel, it's more than just a means to an end, and it's never about getting to the finish line quickly. Writing a novel isn't a race. You don't get points for arriving at the ending before someone else. It's an adventure that grows with the writer as if it has a mind of its own. An adventure that, although one the writer is designing, she is swept up in, anticipating the voyage it will also take her on. If you are writing a novel and you want it to be quick and simple, then you're not interested in the journey. And since along that journey is where you discover the true brilliance of your story, you will undoubtedly miss out on creating that which has the average reader hurrying back to the story they have fallen in love with. Maybe there are other types of writing that you can do quickly and simply. A daily progress report, a grocery list, a survey of all the people that like to write quickly. But a novel just isn't one of them. If you're looking for a quick breakfast because you're late for work, you can fry an egg quickly and simply, and that works here. But if you're looking to impress your boss who you've invited over for a very special meal, then quick and simple won't work. To write a good novel with so many vital components like rising action, conflict, tension, and climax, just to name a few, there's just no way to achieve that quickly. And believe me, a novel is anything but simple. But understand, a novel that you've attempted to write quickly says more about you than the novel. What type of person are you that you can be in any way satisfied with setting out to write a quick and simple novel? Some, Sometimes I spend weeks, even months, creating just the landscape in the fantasy novels I write. Once I get started, I can't help but to go over it and over it, adding new features until it feels real to me. Because if my made up land with all its characters, castles, and scenery, like all parts of my novel, doesn't feel real to me, how can it feel real to my reader? And another thing, I don't spend so much time creating all of that just because it's necessary. I do it because I really love doing it. It's a rare experience bringing to life a character that didn't exist until your imagination brought it into existence. Think of how Mary Shelley must have felt when she created Frankenstein, or how J.K. Rowling felt when she created Harry Potter. These are not characters, nor are the novels they live in something to be created quickly. When I said wanting to write quickly said more about the writer than anything else, I said this because that writer doesn't really want to write. They're not in it for the experience. They're just trying to get to that finish line in a one person race. If you're one of those types of writers, could it be you're under pressure from your editor or whoever is paying you to finish? Don't get me wrong, that's all well and good, but you need to realize that by rushing to the ending of your novel, however lucrative it might be for you, you are sacrificing some of your quality. Michelangelo was under pressure to complete the painting of the Sistine Chapel, and yet he took 4 years to finish. Leonardo da Vinci took about 15 years to paint the Mona Lisa. Imagine what either of these two masterpieces would have ended up looking like if they decided to forego quality for a quick result. It also took Margaret Mitchell 10 years to complete Gone with the Wind. There's something very magical about writing a novel. In my early years as a writer, I was like those who simply wanted to get to the finish line. I remember my first novel, if, if you could call it that, when I believed I had done enough, me and a friend sent out 150 query letters to prospective publishing houses. Of those, only five were interested in seeing my manuscript. Not one of them were interested in my 200-page fantasy novel. Then I did some soul searching and asked myself if this is really what I want to do. When I answered yes, I then told myself to stop playing around and truly take it seriously. So I did. Over the next little while, I turned those 200 pages into 700 pages. I then sent out my manuscript to one publisher to start with. A month later, they got back to me and told me they would love to have me join their family. That was my first published novel. My point here is quick and simple is just another way of saying I'm not ready to commit to such an endeavor as writing an entire novel. When I finally got serious about my writing, the experience was magical. I found myself slowing down and enjoying the process of creating a novel. I stopped looking ahead for that finish line. I spent a great deal of my time creating my characters and eventually knew them so well that I merely just followed them on their journey through my story. I simply put them in a situation and then watched to see how they dealt with it. I know it sounds strange because I'm the one doing the writing, but it really was like they had minds of their own. Creating strong characters will do that. Just like the reader who couldn't wait to get back to her novel each evening, I found myself eager to get back to writing mine, anticipating what will unfold next for my characters. Seasoned writers already know what I'm talking about, probably better than me. And novice writers, if they stick with it, will undoubtedly discover the same thing. If I can leave you with something, it will be this. Write your quick and simple novel and then read it back to yourself. Then ask yourself this question: would I rush to feed and bathe the kids and curl up on my sofa eager to get back to this? When you're able to answer that question, you will have already answered your first one. And now I'll finish telling you about the story I call Leaving Nothing to Chance. When the two witnesses stared into the parlor room, it was the sight of Charlotte that had them surprised. There she was, fast asleep in a seated position, the very first person in 200 years to remain in the house for the entire night. But it wasn't because Charlotte was braver than anyone else. On the contrary, she was always the most frightened. She even hated Halloween because half the costumes scared her. So you're probably wondering, then how could she have been sleeping during a time that had all the others running out screaming? The answer is simple. She wasn't merely sleeping, she was unconscious. She was so terrified at seeing the hand coming out of the darkness that she screamed uncontrollably until she finally passed out. And the reason she didn't just get up and run out of the house with Olivia and Amelia was because, knowing that she couldn't leave that house without the prize money, when Ava got up to investigate, she clasped the other end of the handcuffs to her own wrist. So, as much as she wanted to run out of the house screaming like everyone else, she was stuck, handcuffed to the radiator. Thanks for watching. And if you found anything that I said beneficial to you in any way, please hit that subscribe button because you never know. My next video might just be helpful too.